the whole thing on film. And right after the Pentagon had been hit, somebody had gone over to the gas station and taken the video away, and it wasn't released for months. And it was just kind of weird because they showed the couple stills, and you don't see anything. There's the Pentagon, and then there's the boom, and they don't really show anything. And I mean, that's a lot. That right there is a place where I think people, like the media, could have easily changed like how to look at that. Because I mean, it seems like, you know, they could have easily put the whole video out. You know, it doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal, but I mean, people could take that so many different ways. And then the light poles, I mean, there was like, you know, like a whole mark in the grass where the plane had scratched and everything. And the light poles that were hit, the light poles had just been like knocked over. And the plane was flying at about 400 miles per hour, but the light poles were just pretty much laying on the ground. Like if something was going to hit it that hard, I feel like it would have flown somewhere. And then the glass that broke from the light was just like a 10-foot radius of where the light hit. Like it didn't shatter everywhere, it kind of just like knocked over, shatter, you know, good to go. And then the fact that, I mean, there was a lot of like witnesses that say, you know, they saw it zoom over and hit the Pentagon and everything, but nobody said anything about a sound of a plane. Like if a plane's going to fly that close over the highway, somebody's going to hear something. Like that's a loud noise. And it really, nobody said anything about hearing a plane, they just all saw this plane. And then there's Flight 93, which is probably one of the biggest things. There wasn't barely any plane pieces, obviously, because they say the plane disintegrated in itself. So there was barely any pieces at all. The pieces that were found, a lot of people say that they weren't the right kind of plane pieces. Because for Flight 93, the people think that I was shot down or that it landed in an airport, because the mayor of Ohio said, he had a quote on a bunch of pages that I read, that a plane had landed. They had heard that there was a bomb threat in some... You're fine. I figured I was going somewhere. But that there was a bomb threat on a plane, and they identified it as Flight 93, and that it landed due to a bomb threat and it was taken to a secure area, and that another plane, Flight 175, which hit one of the towers, can't remember which one, that had some kind of threat to it too. But there was people, like interviews of people in the town that say that they remember seeing the plane like land and everything, and it was there and everything. And then the hole in the ground from the plane was really shallow. Like it wasn't very deep or big at all, probably big enough to like lay the plane in, but it wasn't deep. I mean, obviously if a plane's going to go fast enough to disintegrate, it seems like there should have been, you know, some huge hole. And then the phone calls, all the alleged phone calls from family members. If the plane was going fast enough to where it disintegrated, there's a lot of equations I read for this one too. There was no way that the calls could have happened. They couldn't have gotten any signal from anything if the plane was going fast enough to disintegrate. And then the debris from the plane was about a 2.5 to 8 mile radius of where the plane actually like hit the ground, and it should have been a block within where all the pieces were. Big question is why. The owner of the World Trade Center lease actually sold it like months before the towers were hit, and after it was hit down, I mean, $7 billion. He wanted $7 billion in insurance. And a while before this, Iraq was talking about selling the oil from petrodollars to euros. So I mean, that would have hurt the U.S. quite a lot. I mean, they wouldn't have been able to keep paying for that. And then power, because I mean, if you know, we all believe that Al-Qaeda had attacked us, so we all were ready to support Bush, and he can go and take over Iraq and stuff. And so that really gave him a lot of the support that he needed. What I got from this presentation, I really don't want to go into journalism. I mean, I really admire them for what they do, but I couldn't deal with all that stress all the time. Some days I kind of believe what I hear and I read some more stuff, and then some days it just kind of seems ridiculous.